Welcome back to my channel. I'm glad you came. And if you're visiting for the first time, I'm also glad you're here. My name is Ola, and the aim of this channel is to encourage you in the personal study of the scriptures. When we engage in the study of the scriptures, it helps us to get more familiar and to know our God and understand Him better. Are you somebody that is not really sure how God speaks to you? In my last video, I spoke about 3 portable ways that the Lord speaks to us when we're reading the scriptures. It could either be through a commandment, a principle, or a process that is being described in the scriptures. In this video, we're going to be looking at 3 other ways that the Lord can speak to us when we're studying the scriptures. Our God is the God of all creation because He made nature, and He sometimes does speak to us even through His word, giving examples of nature. In Psalm 92 verse 12, it says, "The righteous shall flourish like a palm tree." And if we think about the characteristics of a palm tree, it's an evergreen, which means that it does not shed its leaf either in autumn or winter. It's also able to withstand some dry tropical seasons, and also any dramatic climatic change is able to withstand it. And I can think of it in terms of also of its root system that is well developed in such a way that it can gather all the nutrients it needs to be able to function. So when you think about the adaptations that you have in a palm tree and liken it to what a righteous person is, the Lord is using that to say that irrespective of situation or circumstance that the righteous person faces, he would remain strong, he will remain functional, and would also be able to carry on doing everything that he needs to do, and he will prosper. So this is the Lord speaking to us through example of nature in His word. The Lord does speak to us through parables, and we have a lot of examples of this in the Gospels. And one of it is that of the parable of the wise and foolish virgins. And we can see this in Matthew chapter 25 verse 1. The first verse says, "Then shall the kingdom of heaven be likened unto 10 virgins, which took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom." Now, the rest of it tells us the story about how the bridegroom was now delayed. So the virgins had to sleep while waiting for the bridegroom. But 5 of them were brought some extra oil, while the other 5 did not. So while they were sleeping, the lamp was burning, and some of the 5 of them exhausted the oil. So unfortunately, the bridegroom came, and so they had to go out to go and get some extra oil. Essentially, they were not adequately prepared for the coming of the bridegroom. And so we can learn a lesson from this particular parable of preparedness. And while this is set, or the parable is in the context of us as Christians being prepared for the coming of Christ or the coming of the bridegroom, we can apply the lesson from there to other areas of our life. For instance, a pregnant woman that is expecting knows that at the end of 9 months, in most cases, they will have their baby. So most women would be prepared for what they will need on the day and for the baby that is coming after. And if we see anybody that does not make this preparation, even though they can afford to do so, we will consider them foolish. Or take the example of a student that is learning some content, and they know that at one point or towards the end of their course, they will be examined, and they're not being diligent in making themselves good at the program or preparing themselves so that they can do well in the examination. We can consider that student to be foolish. So this is an example of how we can see or use parables in the scriptures to apply to areas of our life, and this essentially is God speaking to us. The Lord also speaks to us through the life of people in the scriptures. So we have a lot of characters that we can look at their lives and see how they navigated their living and the things that happened to them and how they came through, and we can take a leaf from there. A good one for me is an example of the life of Job. So he suffered loss, and when you read through the story, you will see that all the things that happened to him was due to the conversation that Satan had with the Lord. and the Lord knew that Job would be faithful. So he allowed the devil, to tamper with some things in his life. But in the end, we know that Job was found faithful to God. And that I know from that story, I know that it is possible for a righteous person, a Christian, to suffer loss. Let's look at the life of David, for instance. He was a little boy and he was taken away from his home, but the Lord knew what he was going to be later in life. So all the struggles that he went through was to prepare him for that future role of being the king of Israel. And so we can take a leaf from the life of people from the scriptures, and when you see those kind of examples, they can speak to you, or you can use them and apply the situation into your life. And essentially, that is the Lord speaking to you as well. So in this video, we've looked at 3 other ways that the Lord can speak to us through the scriptures. So we've talked about him talking to us through nature, examples of nature in scriptures. We've talked about parables, which we have a lot of them in the Gospels. And we've also talked about the life of people, which is all over the scriptures. I am, however, not suggesting that these are the only ways, but the more you look at the scriptures, the more you will identify and you will know when the Lord is speaking to you. You get used to the way he speaks to you. So I'll say unto you, until next time, search your scriptures for those nuggets, and God bless.